So after class today, when you go back to your computer, you're going to be able to go into Talent and you will see the course, and you might have to use, depending on your interface, mine's a little bit different because I have all these different levels, but you'll see 1.2.1, Introduction to Planning the Planning Process. That's this class. So you'll go into the class. The guide for this class and the ones that are going to follow it is right here. You can download it from here if you want the student guide. It's there for you. But you'll go through the class. There is a course code for the class. So we will give you that code at some point during class today. Make sure you write that down, because when you sit down at the computer, if you don't put that code in, it's not going to let you through the class. And then it's not going to give you the next phase of classes, and then I'm going to have to come see you, and it's not going to be fun. So when I tell you write this down, write it down. Okay. So with that, Chuck's going to start the class, and then he's got somewhere to be, so if we don't wrap up before he has that, I'll pick up the tail end of it.
Introduction to Planning 1.2.1, the planning process itself is obviously where we're going to start. I know a couple of you have been through part of this before, or maybe most of this, but just kind of go along with us, because some things have changed. You may learn some things that you didn't learn last time. We may talk about things that we didn't talk about last time. So real quick, for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Chuck O'Neill. I am currently the Senior Project Manager for AMPHIBs and LCS here at SDAES for QED. Before that, I was the Project Manager for CRUDES, which is Cruisers and Destroyers, and Planning Supervisor for CRUDES, Senior Structural Planner for years. I worked in execution prior to coming here, so I've executed just about every work item that we could ever write on every platform that we ever write them for, with the exception of my current ship's LCS. LCS is about the only ship that I've never worked on at all in any capacity, but ship repair. So it's basically all the same in the grand scheme of things. Prior to that, I worked in the shipyard as well. Prior to that, in Washington State, I built houses for about 15 years. Was in the Navy on submarine Sturgeon class, greatest ships in the Navy, and was a bull rider for about 5 years. So I've done a little bit of everything. So there we go. And now here I am. So after this class, I want all of you to know that whether or not you work in my program, because some of you do, but even if you don't, if you have questions that you're having trouble finding the answer to, that have anything that pertains to the planning process, work notifications, planning folder locations, shared drive information, structural repairs, mechanical, whatever it is, if you're just stuck and you can't seem to find the answer, my office is all the way at the other end of the building on the second floor, right smack dab in the middle. So come see me, and I'm glad to help you if I have time. I leave my door open most of the time anyway. Okay? All right. So moving right along. The objective, I can look right here. Sorry. New setup, new training room. So, yeah. Course objective, by the end of this, you should understand the planning process that we utilize here at SDAES for effective project management, execution, and development work items, and the availability package, which is the entire repair period that Navy ships go into the shipyard to get repairs accomplished. You should be able to identify the life cycle of the work items, basically through all the stages of their development, from the very first beginning when we start to the end of it when it goes back to the government and then moves into solicitation and bidding phase, and then on to execution. You should also be able to understand the quality controls and milestone tracking that we use to make sure we deliver everything on time and on budget. Okay? All right. So what we're doing in the grand scheme of things is we're writing work items. So technically they're work specifications, but the slang term for them over the years has always been work items. They're called work items just about everywhere you look. And we translate that into WIs. You'll hear people talk about WNs and WIs. West Coast guys call them wins, which doesn't make sense, but that's fine. That's what they do. Yeah. But a win is a WN, which leads to a WI. Okay. We do all of these things in NMD, or the Navy Maintenance Database. Okay. That is the centralized software website, or centralized website, excuse me, that we utilize to do all of these things. It's also used in execution for completion of the work itself. Okay. process overview. Okay. As you can see here, we get WNs, like we said, that's the beginning. They go into the CSMP, which is the maintenance package for that ship. Okay. That is then translated into VSB, which is a validate, screen, and brokering site that port engineers and project managers for Marmac Northwest use to then broker the WNs to us through NMD. Then we get the work, we induct it, we develop 4E specs. We're going around the bottom, by the way. We go through a quality control process. Our APSs verify that. That's the last stage of us. APS is kind of the belly button. He is the point guy or the single point of contact for the government to QED for that ship and that availability. And then we provide those to the government, and then they go on through the process. They get they go out for bid. Different contractors bid on them. Then they get awarded, and then it goes into execution, hopefully with on-time delivery and budget. Okay. First knowledge-based question out of what we've done so far. That was quick, right? What is the primary goal of the SDAES planning process out of those 4 choices? Anybody got one?
B.
What do you say? B? B would be correct. The goal here is to minimize cost and deliver on time and on budget. Okay? So what does that mean? When we write a work item, our goal, the goal for us is to give the government a work item that he can then give to a contractor, and he can do those repairs exactly as written for the cost that it was bid at, or excuse me, that it was awarded for. So I'm going to make numbers up. So if I'm going to paint that bulkhead, and I have a work item that tells me that I'm painting that bulkhead, okay, and let's say that work item was awarded to Buddy Reynolds Contracting Company for 50 grand, okay, to paint that bulkhead. I know it sounds crazy, but it's probably not far off in the government speak. The goal is for Buddy Reynolds Contracting to be able to paint, preserve that bulkhead for 50 grand or less, and not a penny more. That's the goal. Okay. So in a nutshell, that means that when I give you that work item, I gave you everything you needed, and you couldn't find anything that I missed or that the work item missed. And then you would then say, oh, well, you didn't tell me there was a light switch, or you didn't tell me I was going to have to take down a whiteboard, or so on and so forth. That's kind of the general way it's supposed to go. Now, some things like whiteboards and switches are covered by interference, and we'll get into that a little bit later, further on in the training, but generally speaking, that's the goal. I want you to fix this with this piece of paper, and the amount of money I told you I would pay you to fix it is all I want you to spend. And you were able to come back to me and say, yep, you guys were right. I fixed it all, and the money you paid me to do it, I didn't need a penny more. That's the goal, okay, for the government. Okay, so creation of the work notification itself. The way these things works is Ship's Force writes work notifications. Port engineers then also write them as well, but the process is the port engineer takes all these from the CSMP and then puts them, like I said earlier, through VSB, and then they're brokered into NMD as a WN. Okay, they start off as 2 kilos, and they become, go through the process, and then they eventually become a WN, or a work notification, that then is passed through NMD to us to turn that work notification into a work item for us to write that technical document, basically, for them to do the repairs. Okay? Any questions about that at all? Okay. What does NMD stand for? Navy Maintenance Database. That is 100% correct answer. Okay? NMD tasking memos. Okay. Like I said, WNs are sent to us to NMD. Now, the way that happens is they're sent via a tasking memo, or a TM, as we call it. Okay? So the project manager will create a tasking memo in NMD on that particular SSP, which is the availability for the ship itself. Okay? They will send us a tasking memo, which has a whole list of WNs. It might be 5, it might be 2, it might be 100. Just depends on how many he has ready to give us. Okay. Once that is done, they're tasked, via the TM. They're both linked to that SSP. Okay, which is the ship specification package number. Okay. Which again, so for example, on the one she's got up here. If you see the DVG 109, so anybody know DVG 109? It's Jason Dunham. So that's the Jason Dunham for the Marmac. Marmac is the RMC. Okay, and you can see where it says that the fiscal year of the availability itself, not the year we're in here, the year that it's going to execute out in the shipyards is what the 18 is for this example. Okay, and then we have different types of availabilities, but basically in this building, for your general knowledge, we have CNOs and CMAVs. And there's some RAVs and TAVs and other things mixed in, but in the grand scheme of things, we do CNO avails and then we have CMAVs. And that's really how it goes, okay? We have our AMPHIB, LCS, and CRUDES CNO avails, and then we have our CMAV team. They do all the CMAVs. CMAV numbers you'll see there where it says CN, which is CNO, will be an SS typically. Sometimes it's different letters if it's an emergent or an unplanned, but for the bulk of them, they are SS. Okay. And then like I said, once we get that is forever linked with that availability until they decide that they may need to move it. Okay. Questions about that at all? Okay. Which document or documents, it should be R, but anyway, linked to the ship package number or SSP? A. Okay. Is that it? Okay. How about A and D? Okay. Remember, tasking memo sends us the WNs. Both of those are now linked to that SSP. So in other words, at my level as a project manager, I'm actually the guy who accepts those tasking memos. So if I ever need to go back and look at a tasking memo, somebody says, I can't remember when we got this particular WN, whatever the question may be, I go to that availability or that SSP, and that's where I'm going to find the tasking memo, which will give me the list of the WNs that tasking memo gave me or gave us. Okay? They're forever intertwined. All right, the SDAES CNO planning process here, okay, like we said earlier. So the WNs are typically assigned, or let's rephrase that just a little bit. Planning availability takes a year. Planning of availability, well, it's actually a little bit more than a year now, but a year plus, okay? All of CNO availabilities are planned 2 years in advance, okay, generally speaking. So by that I mean, if an avail is going to execute 2 years from, let's say it was today, okay, then today we should expect to get the initial induction for that availability to induct into planning, okay? We get that via technical instruction, which is a TI, and that all dates tied to a government or Navy availabilities are measured or tracked via A- and A+ numbers, okay? So A- 650 is 650 days, 2 years, okay, prior to that availability beginning to execute, okay? So at A- 650 is when we should start to expect the initial technical instruction that tells us, hey, QED, we're ready for you to plan a Jason Dunham, okay? It's 25 now. Jason Dunham is going to execute sometime in 27, okay? Or late 26 into 27, okay? Make sense? It's pretty cut and dry, really. Now, sometimes we get them a little earlier, like A- 670, 680 sometimes, 660, and sometimes they're a little late. Sometimes it's 640, 630, they're just given to us a little later than normal, okay? But generally speaking, somewhere around that A- 650 date is when we expect to see that we start a new ship or starting a new avail. Okay, and then from that point, we'll start to receive the WNs or the work notifications through the tasking memo into NMD, and it goes through our process, as you can see. So we receive the WN. I wish I had a way to point. I don't. We receive the WN. Okay, this is our work induction, 300 calendar days, like I talked about, basically roughly a year-ish. Okay, for the base package. We develop specs via 4E. Like I said earlier, we're repeating it a little bit, but this is the most important pieces of all the training, to be honest with you. Goes through quality control, our APS is verified, and then we get to our 100% milestone, which is the completion of planning the entire base package, okay? and then we deliver those at around A minus 350. We've been doing this for 300 days, almost a year, right? Back to the government, okay? And then at around A minus 335, the government turns the entire package over. The entire package is turned over. It gets published, which basically means, okay, here it is, everybody. Go bid on it, like an auction type of thing. It's not an auction, but you get the idea, right? I'm sorry?
Well, we'll stand bid once.
Yeah. So, and then, okay, here it is, guys. Go tell us how much you think it's going to cost, and we'll tell you who wins, type of thing, okay? And that's right in here. Solicitation at 315, okay? Any questions about that? Some of it can be a little confusing, but through the planning process, the more you know about the goal we're headed towards, the better planner you're going to be. Now, do you need to be that in tune to the publishing and the solicitation? Not necessarily, as you're planning the work items. That's why you have supervisors and managers and the other guys to kind of look after all of that. But the more you know about it, the more you understand why we're driving to a goal, and we might act like we're in a hurry, because sometimes we are. Okay. All right, so the details of all that. I probably should have skipped to this one first. My apologies. I'm getting familiar with the PowerPoint. Like I said, A minus 650 start planning date. Somewhere in that neighborhood, we get the first TI, establishes our duration team. At that point, because we have a duration team, we do all facets of the planning, by the way. We don't miss anything, okay? Our duration team starts working on the induction schedule analysis, or POAMs, which is plan of action and materials. So in other words, how's this whole thing going to go, and how are we going to get all the material, and are we going to get all the material that they're going to need, okay? And any risk, which means work items that may impact duration, okay? You understand what I mean when I say duration? Does everybody understand what I mean by that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the critical path. So, and I'm going to explain a little bit anyway, because I know you understand, but so when we track availabilities in our duration team, the point is this: on budget, like we talked about, and on time. Remember we said that, on time and on budget? So if I say that this availability is going to be 7 months, we need to do it in 7 months. Now that's not us doing it, okay, but we track it for the government to let them know, hey, you may not be able to do this particular work item because it's going to take way too long, that type of thing. Or you want to replace this door and we can't find one to get to you in less than 2 years. See, all those things are part of the execution that we provide, or the execution of the availability that we provide to the government, okay? What, we said in about 3 slides, so here we go. What is significance of A minus 650? A, yeah, this is easy, right? Okay, work induction again. Now, when we get to WNs, our management team and APS will download from NMD, and then we also start ship checks at that point. Some of you guys are ship checkers, so you understand that's when you guys kick off, and here we go. All right, even before we start writing work items, you guys are out there on the deck plates verifying that the piece of paper they gave us is correct. Or what else are we doing when we do a ship check? There, Emberton. What else are we looking for? Not only was it correct, but what else could we look for when we do a ship check?
Things that are wrong, things that have changed on the job.
Things that have changed. Okay, it may have changed. Some of these things we get were written a year ago. Okay. What else? Anything else you can think of? Come on.
Interference.
Growth. I heard interference. Exactly. Perfect. Those are the big ticket things that we're looking for. Is the WN you gave me correct? Okay, based on what's on the deck plates. Did anything about it change since the time you wrote it? What's in the way? And is there anything else around that we should let them know about when we walk up there and look at that pump and, oh my God, the deck is in terrible shape. You might want to paint that too. That type of thing, okay?
Location.
Location, exactly. That's part of verifying it's correct, yeah. Did you take me to the right spot? Or did you tell me it was on the flight deck and it was really on the forecastle? The forecastle's the bow, by the way, for those who don't know.
That's not a course.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Course and update.
Ship repair guy, can't help it. All right, any questions about that? Okay. What is the purpose? Oh, look at that. What is the purpose of ship checks during work induction? B, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably. Out of those choices, it would be B. Verify condition. which can wrap all those things up. Verify the conditions, location, what else is wrong, interference, so on and so forth. Okay, 4E spec development. Our planners, obviously, as we touched on, but just getting more into the details, you guys can see right, okay. Maybe I should do it this way. Planners begin WI develop using an MD, okay, obviously. We write to the GIFM, the 4E section of the GIFM. That is our Bible, that is our guideline. That is, when you write the work items for the government, this is what I want you to use. This is what tells you what phraseology, what words you can and can't use, the format, the order of the work item, what goes into what paragraph, all kinds of things, okay? When you should use a particular NAVC standard item, okay? Now, we also use NAVC standard items, obviously. Cortel and MBPS, these are you guys familiar with these yet? So this is a database support it's like a tech library. So if you know that you need a particular reference, a tech manual, a drawing, an EATP, a design memo, any of those things that you need to write that work item, those are some of the places you can get it. So you send an email to Cortel and say, hey, I'm working on the Iwo Jima and I need this structural drawing to help me do it. We don't already have it in place. Yes, sir.
Does Cortel have classified information too?
No. Cortel will not distribute classified information. You get that from other sources, and that will come later as well. Okay. Cost and availability development. Okay. Does anybody know what that is at all? It's okay if you don't, because a lot of you probably have no idea, and I don't expect you to know. Okay. Cost and availability, that is for all of our material. Okay. C&A, we call it for short. Okay. These two go together. Our logistics teams begins our LLTM, which is long lead time material. Okay. Process, and they look over all material requirements, which MRQT is short for material requirements. So, what does that mean? Okay. Anything that requires material that's not raw material. Okay. By raw material, you're talking about, if you're not sure, raw material are things like plate, like just steel plate, sections of piping that you put together to make something, paint, raw materials. Though all those things are not considered. That's not the type of material. The type of material we're talking about are pumps, motors, valves, doors, certain foundations. All those things that are already an assembled unit. Like that computer monitor or a towel dispenser. Those type of things. That's a piece of equipment. Raw material that you use to build something like 2x4s and plywood and that kind of things in the commercial world. That's raw material. That's not tracked in that manner typically. Okay. Everybody understand that? Good. Okay. Then our quality control that we talked about, which is here. Okay. Again, that's 4E spec compliance using 4E and the standard items. Okay. And then we have 7 attributes that we adhere to make sure they're correct. Your location, your ID, up-to-date references. Okay. The requirements, which is paragraph 3. Chronological order, tests and inspections and reports. Okay, so those are all things that are a part of what makes up that work item that we need to make sure are correct. Okay?
Okay, David, why do we accept unset WN, incorrect EPL, incorrect equipment, BLK 35 description, not complete? Is there not a way to screen and return WN to government?
That's a fantastic question, and my answer is this. There are, however, when we accept WNs via tasking memo, unless they're WNs that are doing alts or modifications that we're not paid to do, we accept them all, okay? Because until we accept them, we really aren't. The way it works is we accept them and then we review all of them once they're accepted, okay? Then we review them all, and this is coming much later in the course, but it's a great question. We review them all for quality and exactly those things he speaks of. Wrong location, wrong APLs, just wrong in general. And then what we do is we submit PCFRs within 10 days of receipt of that WN, informing the government that we found that this WN wasn't worth the paper it was written on. We can't really do anything with it. We need you to either A, clarify it, or B, take it back. That's how we handle that situation. We don't have the ability to pick and choose. I don't want this one. I want this one. We can't do it that way. We have to take them all and then review them, QA them, and then discuss the ones that cannot be written. Things like APL, you can still write. I'm not going to get too in depth on that because that comes later in the course. But if it's an incorrect APL, that's a material thing, and we can still work through that as we're writing the work item. So in other words, if you know you're working on a piece of equipment and it's a pump and you know what kind of pump it is and you know how to write it, the only thing you need to do is figure out what the right APL is. We can do that and still keep the WN. We write a PCFR, say, hey, you guys gave us the wrong APL. We're going to go find a new one because we're the SME, we're the correct one, and we're going to let you know that we found the right one and here's where your mistake was and here's the PCFR to tell you, type of thing. Okay? Which of the following is not part of the QA or quality control process? C, Charlie. Exactly.
I got a job for sliding pad on Arlington a while back.
Mhm.
And they had wrote it at the decon station, which it obviously was not in there.
Mhm.
And so I thought the whole point of the ship check also was to make sure that for the planners that the correct stuff was on there.
That's a true statement. It absolutely is.
So we're supposed to take all W's regardless if
No,
they messed up or
no.
not.
No. I'm here to tell you as a project manager for AMPHIBs, and I'm hoping that was a CMAF, but it was probably before I took over AMPHIBs, so I'm going to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. I'm here to tell you that if now the tricky part about this is when the ship checkers start to do it, you guys see them, you just get going while the planning floor is in the background doing the review within 10 days. You see what I mean? So ship check should be plugged into that, and we're still working on that piece. But if a WN makes it through us accepting it and us reviewing it, and then it's still wrong and it makes it to ship check, then ship check is yet another way for us to catch that, okay? And we should have caught that before it ever got to ship check, quite frankly. So my expectation of my program, my team, is that they don't ever send a ship checker out there for that one because it's just completely wrong. Now, we may write a PCFR against it, and they may answer the PCFR that says, yep, you're wrong, we put the wrong location, here's the correct one, and then we just have those two together to know where you're supposed to go. Okay? APS verification. Our advanced planning support, or APSs, like I said, that's that liaison or belly button with the maintenance team. He is the go-to, the point guy between QED and the government. He does his review or verification that checks that makes sure that the WI matches the scope requirements. So in other words, did we write the work item to do the job they asked us to do? Okay. He wants to make sure that we didn't get a WN that asked us to paint this wall and we wrote a job to replace that door. Those type of things. I mean, that's a little drastic example, but I think you get the point. Was what they're asking us to do captured in its entirety in the product we delivered to the APS that we're then going to deliver to the government? Because what we don't want to do is give a product or a work item to the government and those guys be able to say, well, this looks really good. I like what you did, but you've missed half of what we asked you to do. That don't look good for us. We don't want to do that. Okay. And the APS is our last line of defense for that. That's why it goes through this entire process. We screen, I shouldn't say screen, well, we do kind of screen, but we review the WNs for quality. We do all these things that we talked about. The planners dig deep into it. You're the guys making money. QED don't make money from what I do. They make money from what you do. Without the planners writing the work items correctly, I don't have a job. So really the planning floor is the meat and potatoes of this entire contract. That's all there is to it. So we go through all these checks and balances to A, give the right thing, and B, protect our planning floor and help them learn. So, we can either get better or use what we're doing to show somebody else. Here's how it's done. You know what I mean? We go through all these things. QA, the APS is the last person. Okay? he, like I say, works with the government project manager to do the review of the work items. So we do spec reviews as much as possible. So basically what we do is when that work item is done and we're ready to give it to the government, we put it in planning floor review verified, which comes a little bit later in the training as well. But we move it to that status in NMD. The government now knows it belongs to them. We're done, Mr. Government. Here you go. It's yours to look at and tell us you like it, you want some changes, or you just flat out don't like it, or we just flat out didn't do it correctly. Those type, which that never happens. Okay? And then, like I said, that's done in NMD to the government. Okay? Here we go. Quick question right after it. What's the purpose of the APS verification stage?
Okay.
There it is. Okay? Easy day, right? Now, A minus 350. A minus 350, so now remember we started at 650, so this is 300 days later, okay? We're at 100% milestone. This is the last milestone for the base package. So it's broken up into three. Okay, we have a 50% milestone, which does 50% of the value of the availability. You'll get into all this details later. Worry too much about it just yet. Okay. Then we have an 80% that comes next. We're tracking along. And then we have 100%, and that's when we said, okay, that's it. You gave us 1,000 WNs for the Iwo Jima C&O avail, and we took all 1,000 and we made them into work items, and we identified all the long lead material with the CNA process. Okay. Again, all those things, the details of those pieces you'll learn throughout the training. This is just more of an overview so you understand the entire planning process. And we gave you a quality work item. Here you go. And these are the milestones I was talking about. 50 is at somewhere around 472. The 80% is somewhere around 400 to 402. And then the 100% is typically right on the money around 350. Sometimes 349, 348, 351, but pretty much right there. Okay? So think about that for a second. So if the first milestone is at A minus 472 and we started at 650, that's a pretty good amount of time to get those work items done, you know. Now, we don't want to drag our feet, but because we expect, and the government expects, that that's going to be the largest amount of WNs that we will get is in that first 50% or to that first 50% milestone, we have the largest amount of time to plan those. And then the pieces start to get smaller as we move along, okay? The goal for us, so you guys know as you move forward, is to have any of the jobs that are going to have long lead time material for the 50%. Because, keep in mind, some of this material may take a year to 2 years to get. So they may not actually get it. Even though we're almost 2 years ahead of when they're going to start, if it takes 2 years for them to get it, they're still, you know what I mean? They're cutting it close. So they may not get the material in time to do the work. Okay?
Chuck, is long lead time material equate to government material only?
Yes. Well, yes and no. The way it works is, it's a great question. So there's basically three types of material, okay? You have CFM, or contractor furnished material, which means that to do this job, the contractor's going to go buy on his own everything he needs. The steel plate, the welding rods, the paint, the bolts, nuts, screws, whatever, shelf items, stuff like that. Okay, it's customer furnished. Okay, maybe a small valve, if you know, something like that. Then you have known GFM, or government furnished material. Okay, that means we know up front that the government's going to provide that material to the contractor. Okay, so the contractor don't have to worry about going out to buy it. He just has to worry about bidding the job to do the job, and somebody on the government's going to give him the material he needs, other than the other raw materials and stuff that I mentioned that are in that work item as well. But anything that, like the pump that he needs to get replaced is GFM, he's getting it from the government. He don't have to worry about going to get it. They're going to get it for him. And then LLTM, long lead time material, okay, means that it takes so long to get that now we're going to make that GFM. So GFM and LLTM, technically speaking, fall under the same pool and they're the same thing. But just because it's LLTM doesn't automatically make it GFM. The government maintenance team or project manager makes that ultimate decision. So it's our job to identify it and tell him, hey, Mr. Project Manager, this pump's going to take you 4 months to get. Do you want the contractor to buy it? And he's going to go, no, no, no. Make it GFM and we'll go get it. Make sense? So there again, so to overview or recap. CFM is contractor furnished always and forever. He's the guy who buys it, nobody else. GFM is known right out of the gate that I'm telling you right now up front, the government's giving you this material. LLTM is any material that we discover throughout the planning process that is required to do the job, and it's going to take so long to get that the government's going to say, I don't care, make the contractor find it, or, and they're never going to say that, by the way, because they don't trust them. But then he's going to say, yep, you're right, it's going to take a long time to get it, so let's make that GFM as well. Okay? What milestone is around 100%? B. No. Come on, we just did it. That's okay. 100% is round 350. 472 is the 50. Okay. Huh? Oh, D. I'm sorry. I thought you said B. My apologies. I'm getting old. It's hard to hear. Okay. Planning process, A-335 to delivery. Okay, so now we've done our 350 100%. Okay. Some other things are taking place behind the scenes on the government side that we track and are privy to in a lot of cases, but by the time it gets past you guys, you've probably moved on to something else. All right. You're planning another avail. And if you're in CMAP, you're probably planning 12 other avails. But final package, okay, availability award package. So the government reviews it. It gets published, okay? Once it gets published, QED, one of our final roles in the base package world, is to give them CDs and a turnover book. The turnover book is basically a memorandum that has everything about the availability that government maintenance team is going to want to know. All the work items, all the locations, how many WNs were involved, how much material was involved, how much we said the job was going to cost from every work item to a grand total of the whole thing, all the compartments affected on the ship, okay, weight and moment or
Weight balance or something?
yeah, it's weight and moment or Jesus Lord. Yeah, anyway. So they know how the ship is going to be affected in the water, you know, by different weights that are in place. Okay, all those things. The word just completely slipped my mind. Lord have mercy.
Did you get?
I'm sorry?
Shock and vibration.
Yeah, well, that's built into the standard items. So we call out the different standard items, you know, for shock test and vibration analysis and stuff like that. Duration, obviously we talked about that. Stability, thank you, there it is. Stability calculations, that's what I was looking for. That's in there, so they know how stable the ship's going to be when all the work's taking place. So, for example, in the DDG world, they have compensated tanks. So the tanks that normally have fuel, they put water in them. You know, if I put, to keep it simple, you know, ship's here, I'm working over here, adding weight, so I can put water in this tank over here to level it back out. That type of thing. All those details are in the turnover book. Okay, how long it's going to take, how much we canceled, all kinds of things, okay? And then the CDs have a lot of that stuff as well, and the CDs also have all the work items and all the references that are going to be involved for that availability, okay? Then it goes out to solicitation, which basically means, here you go, I'm putting you on the street, bidders have that, okay? We go through a bidders question phase, okay, which basically any guy bidding on the job, MHI, NASCO, East Coast Repair, BAE, whoever that is, okay, they're going to have a lot of questions. Well, they don't necessarily have a lot, but they're probably going to have a few questions. Hey, what exactly did you mean here? I want to make sure I did it correctly. We go through that whole phase. QED is involved in all of that as well. Well, we want to be involved in all of it. We're not always, but on the East Coast, our government typically involves us in all of that. You know, they got bidders questions. Can you help me answer them? We don't get as much involvement on the West Coast during the bidding phase. We'd like to, but that's at SWRMAC's discretion. You know, if Marmac chooses to include us in all that because it really helps them answer some of the questions they may not be able to answer. But the goal is for us, we're still there, is the point. We are right here for the government. If you need help during the bidding phase of your availability, pick up the phone or send me an email. We're here to help you out, okay? And then that goes on all the way to around A-240, which that's when the government says, hey, now I'm ready for you to have everything done. All the bids are in. okay, initial proposals, which are all the bids basically. Everybody's bid on it. We're wrapping this thing up. And then we'll talk about these a little later. And then at A-minus 120, okay, or what, 4 months prior, right, is when we say, okay, BAE, you got it. We're sending the Iwo Jima to you. Okay? You are going to execute her availability at BAE or NASCO or East Coast Repair or, you know, okay? Or Vigor up in the Northwest and the West Coast, places like that. San Diego, you know, wherever it's going to be. Okay? And then it goes to execution, completion, and then the last thing we're involved in from the planning side is we always intend to see plus 21, which basically means that's 21 days-ish, because it's never right on the mark, after the entire thing's done, and now we're going to wrap up and see how it went. Okay? And we attend that as well. For our own growth, for our own knowledge. Why not? I mean, to me, that's this, in my opinion, as a former execution project manager who worked these work items and did the repairs on these ships, this right, the completion event is gold for a planning team. Because now we know, especially for the ones that we wrote. Okay, we wrote it. It went through execution. Now let's see how we did and how they did. And how what they did was affected by what we did. Can we get better? Or did we nail this right on the money? We need to do it that way again. You know? Or, you know, hey, they had a headache during this one, but we maybe need to go take a look and see what we can improve on. Okay?
Lessons learned.
Lessons learned, exactly. Those are the two words that sum up everything I just said in a paragraph. So thank you. But yes. Yeah. Okay. What is the goal? Okay. The goal is for every planner. Okay. This is where me and the training slides are going to differ just slightly, and I'll tell you why. But the goal is for every planner to produce 2 or more executable work items per week. All right. That's in the training slide, and that's what we're going to put out. But I'm here to tell you, as a project manager for AMPHIBs and LCS, 2 ain't cutting it. I don't put a number on it. Okay. Now, we want to see at least 2. Fair enough. But for me, I want you to do as many as you can possibly do. There is no limit. Okay. I want 3, 4, 5, 6 if you can do it. Let's get there quicker. You know what I mean? But we would like to see 2+, you know, and trust me, it's very, very achievable, more than achievable, if the work is there. Okay? True or false? The goal is for every planner to produce at least 1 executable work item per week. If you say true, I'm walking out. Okay. All right. I'm going to turn it over to Kelly at this point. I have done the meat and potatoes of that. I have another meeting to go to, but yes, sir.
Can I ask you just to, like, one small paragraph on critical path? I'm not sure. I mean, I think that's pretty important for planning there.
It is.
What that definition is.
We're going to get there. I'll give you a short brief on it, but it's coming in the training. Okay. But the way the critical path thing works is, so our duration team, like I said, they analyze how much time it's going to take. Okay. Is it going to go overtime? Do we have plenty of time? Okay. And if it's going to go overtime, what is the thing that's the critical path that's getting us to that bad spot?
The prerequisites.
Right. Or what work is it? So in other words, our critical path is going to get us where it needs to be. And a lot of, so I'm going to give you a DDG example, are intakes and uptakes. Okay. Uptakes on a DDG can be miserable, in a word. Because if you, for those of you who understand, I know there's some Navy people in here, probably some DDG sailors, and people that have worked on them. For those of you to understand destroyers and how their propulsion system and the gas turbine and all that works, you know, they have 2 stacks for uptakes and intakes, and there's a third one back after 3 gen, but that's something different. Those uptakes are open to the atmosphere. They're wide open. They're not watertight at all. Rain just pours right down, and so does seawater. And if you know much about a destroyer, they're about as close to a submarine as you can get being a surface ship. Because those damn things take on a ton of water. The pilot house gets bashed. I mean, if you've ever seen, you go look up videos of DDGs in rough seas. They go up and down and through and back up. You know, they just really, that's just the way they're built. They're built to cut through the water. You know what I mean? So in doing that, seawater goes everywhere, and it goes in the uptakes a lot. Uptakes they just take a beat. And because they're open to the atmosphere, you never know what you get until you get inside of them. You know, and SurfMap tries to get there. You know, we try to say, hey, I'm gonna make up a number. If we spend $1 million on the uptakes on a USS Forrest Sherman, that should be enough to get her uptakes fixed. And inevitably you go and you think that's enough until you go in there and you finally get to open them up and you walk in and you're like, oh, we didn't even come close. You just don't know. You just don't know. You know, it depends on her mission, what she's been doing, whatever operation she's been, what seas, what kind of water she's been in, how long she's been on deployment. I mean, there's all these other factors. So we usually identify in that availability what the critical path of that availability, what's really going to hold this thing up, or what's really going to put us way over budget. And that's kind of how that all ties together. You know, and there's a lot of it on different platforms. You know, AMPHIB's got their critical path, their typical usual suspects, if you will. You know, there's a lot of different things. But speaking for DDGs, it's uptakes. I can tell you that from personal experience, both execution and planning. Okay? Yep. Kelly, any questions for me before I go? Okay, like I said, feel free to come and check me out. Anything you may need to know or questions you may have, I am all about answering what I can. I don't know everything, but I am a guy that if I don't know the answer, I promise you I can try to find it, and typically I can find it. Okay? All right, thank you guys so much. Good luck to you all.
Thank you.
Okay. So when we're writing the WI, the commitment is basically that there are 0 bidders questions once that book is put out for bid, and that there are no RCCs, or requests for contract change, which occur once they're already in the execution phase and they get out there and it's like, ha ha ha, which is like what he was talking about. You know, some things are inevitable. Once they open the hatches, the tanks are the enemies. They get into the tank that we have not accessed, and they find out that what was supposed to be a 10-minute job is now going to be hours or days or weeks or a whole overhaul. We just don't know. So those ones, we get those RCCs, but we should not be getting RCCs for paint color and bolt sizes and things like that. Things that we can control. The goal is to have nothing like that. In order to reach our goal, we should be providing an accurate description of the work to be performed, a complete work scope, providing accurate measurements of the labor and material requirements. That's where the ship check measurements come, very, very important. You know, the WN might come in and they have 7 feet of rusty pipe, and by the time that ship finally gets to where we can look at it, it's now 42. Well, we ship checked it here, but it's still another year before it's going to hit the docks for the actual work. So sometimes, depending on what it is, we front load a little bit more, and that may still not be enough. I just saw something the other day, and it went from 5 to 72, and it was like, sweet baby Jesus. You know, we try and front load, and that's more detailed by what you're planning. So I won't touch that because I've never been a planner. But making sure that we have accurate measurements and we're documenting those is really important in supporting how the things change as it goes through. It also helps to save money for the customer by minimizing the growth potential from those RCC or requests for contract change. You have what we call a job planning toolbox, and there are a lot of things available to you. And ShipMD, which is going to be its own course, has the master holder of most of these tools. So we have the GIFM, which you'll hear about, and that's actually going to be the next course that you'll be enrolled into once you go through today. Then there are the ship information books, the eSWIBs, the QMS system, which is another fun-filled course, and we have internal auditing. I don't know if any of y'all are signed up for that. That's tomorrow. Then processes, desk guides, so many desk guides, Cortel, MVPS, which is a newer one. It's actually 2 old platforms merged into one. NMD, CDMA, Logicom, WI lookup, standard items, NAVSEA phraseology, what we call smart memos. There's flash notes, there's lessons learned, there's SLITRA. The number of things available is just, we couldn't begin to list them all because every time I thought the list is complete, there's another one. So these are your highlights of all the things that are available to you. And then the biggest thing I can tell you available to you is the planner that is right there by you. We have some planners that have been here since the beginning. I mean, the amount of knowledge there. Definitely don't be afraid to ask any questions. I've not yet had I lie, one time. I've had a planner tell me that they couldn't answer a question, they were too busy for me. They are there to help, lean on each other. Most of you have already seen ShipMD. I know there's a couple of brand new, like literally just got here, people that are on the training today, but this is ShipMD. It is a proprietary tool. We design it, we program it. Every manager is in charge of a different section. I'm in charge of that training section. So if you ever get in there and it's acting weird, let me know, and maybe it's something I can fix, and maybe it's something higher than me. But all types of tools are in here, and there is going to be a class, and it's going to be tailored for planners, for ship checkers, and for everybody else in between. So that is coming down.
Ship checkers as of right now don't have access to everything.
To NMD? Right. Right now. Your boss should, your whoever, your superior, I guess in this building is possibly Barry Hall, Jason Anderson. They're the only leads in this building.
Ernie and then Trevor.
I know Jeremy does.
There are things that you'll see in there that might be grayed out. Those would be things we built for access.
Yeah. Yeah. So the images are all from mine, and I have a master access to everything, and it took me 3 years to get it. And it was basically begging. It was like, hey, understand that every time I write a class, you got to turn something new on for me. So let's just turn it all on and see what happens. So far, I've broken nothing. So right. Today's class was a very bare basic intro. So you've learned about the whole goal of planning, the timeline for the planning, the tools that are available to you, and you're going to have classes on all those tools. We're writing them as fast as we humanly can, and I'll tell you the amount of things that we've written for y'all in 6 months is mind-numbing. I just met with Jimmy earlier, and he was blown away, so we're getting there. The code, however, is probably the part that you need the most. The code that you need for your class is Papa Lima, capitalized, PL, Papa Lima, the number 4, the number 2, and the number 6. Papa Lima 4, 2, 6. Okay. So let me show you, because I know it's coming. I get out of this. You'll go into your class, files, this is your student guide, it's right there available to download, but otherwise you're going to stay on content. Oh. Start course. Okay. Yep. I'm not reading it because I've read it 15 times at this point. You'll read it, however, when you get to it. It's going to go through. I got to move this out of the way. Hold on. Yep. Scroll to navigate. Great. Cool. Then, where?
The blue line at the bottom. Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay. I got to actually download it. Then it's going to let me move on. Okay. Then the bottom button here says course code. Start test. If you put in anything other than Papa Lima 4, 2, 6, you will fail the class and not be able to go any farther than this screen. There we go. L 4, 2, 6. Submit. Now you got one more section. Scroll down, and you may not have to on your monitor. Every computer here is configured different. Every single one. I have to scroll down, and you click the survey. You got 3 whole questions. Put some effort into it. Name of the instructor. That was Chuck. C-H-U-C-K. Mr. O'Neill. Some people call him Richard. He doesn't like that. That's actually his name. Chuck O'Neill. Then you're going to tell us point blank. You'll rate this class. How was it for you? For me, it was stellar, because that's what I'd like Jimmy to see. Now this, I actually want an honest answer here, because this is the first time we've taught this class. This is it. So I need to know what was good, what was helpful, so that I know what tweaks we're making after this, what those look like. Because I've already got like 15 tweaks that I've written down, but you're the planner. So what tweaks? Most of you have already kind of been here for at least a week or so, and you've seen some things. You've sat with another planner if you're on the planning floor. So you kind of already got a feel for what was really helpful and cleared up some things and what just made things a little more fuzzy for you. Put this in here so that we're tweaking the things so that the next group that come through get a better experience. And then you click the submit and you'll get a magic survey 1 hour later, because that's the fastest it would let me do it. It will automatically assign you to the next class. You will take GIFM, and then you will take Intro to Phraseology,